I'm not even not ready.
You guys gonna ever have
Right.
snacks out?
No.
Or 'cause you don't
I
like
have. I mean,
snacks?
we can totally have
No.
something, but it would have to be like soft.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
All right.
cat,
So
right?
5, 4,
Soft like my thinkles.
3, 2,
Wiener.
1.
Penis.
All right.
Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going, Steve?
Good, man. Good. I'm just looking over my interview questions from
Oh, excellent.
the World Wide Web.
So, hello everybody. Welcome. We are Steven or Steve.
I can't do
Benj.
the. I can't
You
look
can't
at
do
the camera.
Steven?
I just can't look at the camera.
I mean, you don't need to. I'll be the one who looks at it. So, I mean, I'm more familiar with it because I have worked with Robin.
Do you film yourself a lot?
We did film ourselves quite a bit in front of a lot of people
No,
watching
we
us.
probably not that
So-
kind of game.
Well, we were selling clothes, so.
Well, okay.
So, anyways,
Clothes.
hello everybody. Benj and Steve here. We are talking about things that we're interested in, and really the hope right now is for Robin to give me a thumbs up on whether or not she can hear our audio via the stream. All right, Robin is in the background. She's going to be our man in the chair.
You see, now I'm
Yeah,
staring
you
at.
can totally hear.
See,
Yes, too many things in the back.
Too
We need
many
like
things.
a drop cloth.
we just had a whole conversation about ADD, man.
But could we perhaps put like a bubble around us where there's nothing that could possibly distract us? I think then I would be distracted by the bubbles.
But if there's more than one.
Oh yeah, there would be multiple. It would have to be
Yes.
like the inside of one of those. Have you seen the large bubble containers where they run and like play
Yes.
soccer and stuff?
Yes.
It would be like that. I would envision.
It would smell bad
It would. Well, so,
eventually.
Yeah, eventually it
Yeah.
would. Like after like 3 or 4
You
minutes.
need to update that. It's super lag.
That is behind.
Yeah, it's super lag. You guys
Telling you, dude,
Every
don't do the
time.
videos. I'm telling
We
you.
have to have video for
Nope.
for this
Nope.
only.
You
Got a
haven't
radio
really
voice.
got that for that. You just need the cable.
I do need the cable. So the video is just going to be behind.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we'll deal with it.
So
It's okay.
it was your idea to start the podcast.
Yes, it
Talk
was
about
my idea. So
Where'd you come up with the idea?
these are very good questions, Steve. Thank you for
Well,
asking.
thanks, Al
so
Gore.
I have been listening to a large number of long format interviews and different shows like that where it's kind of broken the norm for what I've been used to as far as receiving information or media or updates or anything like that. And I found that was a lot more interesting to watch and to listen to than to try and, I don't know, pull up things through traditional news outlets or
Sure.
even like if I wanted to find something out about nerd stuff, like what I'm into, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. It would always be these short clips. And so I would have to find one that was specific to the exact thing that I was looking for, when really I would be more interested in hearing about the whole process behind it. So
Yep.
I guess that's kind of the idea here, and to find the other people around us who also are interested in having discussions about where they're from and what they want to do.
So, but what do you feel like the podcast has to, like, what is it doing that other podcasts are not doing?
So I haven't been able to find one that has pulled in the people that I'm interested in talking to.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who I know who design their own tabletop games, or there's people who I know who I follow who are streamers and they make their living off of playing video games in front of people, and
Yep.
they have that as their full-time job, and that's something that's super interesting to me. Not in a sense that I think I would ever be talented enough to be able to do it, but just to talk to them and see, how is it that you got to this place? What is it that? How many hours did you have to play before you felt like you were capable of being someone who people could watch?
So was it the diversity then of all of the people who you would like to hear on a podcast in one
Yes.
place? That's what you would like.
That is 100%.
So instead of, I want to study or I want to learn about comic books, you Google,
Right.
you search comic book podcasts,
right,
right?
and that's going to be hard to find because people who design their own comic books are often busy trying to make comic books because
Yeah, it's not easy to make money in comic books. But you also wanted a place that would. So you wanted some kind of resource, and now you wanted to create one because there wasn't one. You were looking for something that provided information in depth in a long format, right?
Correct.
That involved all of your different interests, which are within the umbrella of nerddom.
Right.
Is that right? Is that accurate?
Culture.
Yeah.
That is an accurate summary. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, hey, I got it from you, so.
I mean, we just bounce ideas back and forth, really.
So what has led you to podcasting? Why not just start a blog? Other than the fact that, well, blogs are.
Other than the fact that feels like homework.
Yeah.
That's like, it's Monday. I gotta write a 3-page paper on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels that I think that a blog as a format would be too much work for me.
Yep.
And whereas I know that I can reach out to people and just pull people in to have conversations.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of people who are creating and wanting to get their content out to people. So it's another medium for them to have to point people to. So say someone creates a game and they want people to start hearing about it, or if they go to a convention like PAX or something and they're trying to talk about what their product is.
We missed PAX, by the way.
We totally missed PAX.
Really, really kind of sad about that.
It was a weekend that was not going to work for us at the Bladh home.
Yeah.
But
way to go on having a family.
Oh, families. We both have a million kids, and that really is a lot of things to balance there. So if
you collect I collect children in a legal way, which is having babies.
There's currently
or cut that out actually.
We'll
like
edit
the FBI
that.
is going to be like the only person watching. Johnny FBI.
They're always watching, and if they ever tried to, if they were watching any of our D&D streams, I think that would be enough to try and pull us all.
So, one of the reasons that I liked the idea when you approached me about it is that I consume a ton of podcasts, and again, write podcasts of all different types.
Right.
And when you and I started talking about it, I was like, oh man, that is such a good idea. It really, the kind of podcast that Joe Rogan, and I told you this, Joe Rogan would have made if he was a nerd. If he was a nerd, this is the podcast that Joe Rogan would have made.
Right.
And so, you take a Joe Rogan or somebody else, and they're bringing in people who they're interested in. Your wife, right before we went live, had mentioned Jada Pinkett Smith's podcast.
Oh,
and she does it on
that's
Facebook,
right.
I think, only, but Red Table. And her whole thing is bringing people who she wants to talk to. And other than the fact that she's interested in them, there's not a real tie to them. Same thing with Joe Rogan,
Right.
And then there's also, again, I was really attracted when to the long format type media. Nobody has to sit and listen. It's a podcast, right? You can listen to it live. You can, listen to it, on delay and fast forward through half of it and listen to the parts you want to talk to, but you get to really grasp who a person is and what really occurred. You're not, when I was in journalism, they teach you kind of the triangle model, right? Big, important items, and you go all the way down to the detail at the bottom. And you got to go through as quick as possible because people don't, consume that kind of content in mass, right? They don't want to hear the whole story. Whereas in a podcast form, you're able to go through, you get the whole picture of who somebody is. And so there's no misconceptions, I think, in somebody sharing an idea, but you're also able to go in greater detail. The other reason I like podcasts in particular is they're passively consumed, right? So I can put them on while I work out. I can put them on while I'm doing dishes, or I can put them on while, it can be on in the background while I'm doing 9 other things. And so I can consume them easily. It's kind of like an audiobook, right?
And who wouldn't want to listen to us read them an audiobook?
Well, that's actually, if this one doesn't take off, I was going to pitch you on the other idea of just us reading books.
Oh,
so
well, I would be interested in that. I don't know if you know this, but I did finish an audiobook.
What?
And it's live on the Audible right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So did you write it or you just read it?
No, I found on Audible's back channel for people who publish books to Amazon.
Is this on the black web?
No, on
See,
Amazon's service.
okay, I don't know anything about the computer, so when you tell me stuff like this, I always feel like it's like kind of legal.
No, this is
Or you're
100%
lying.
legal.
Okay.
So it's Amazon offers to anyone who publishes with them their
Yep.
books in ebook format. They offer a service that if you want, people can audition for your book.
Yeah.
And they read like a short excerpt from it, and then submit it. And then if the author likes it, they'll say, "Yeah, I'll pay you this much in royalties, or I'll pay you this fixed amount, and you can read the audio book, and we'll share in the profit." And
Oh, that's awesome, man.
so I did, and
So how did it go? How long did that take?
it took a lot longer than it should have.
Really?
Yes.
So if I was to listen to it, how many hours of your voice do I have?
About 5.5 hours of my voice.
Which is, 5.5, not enough.
I would agree.
So did you do voices?
I absolutely did
Oh.
voices for every character.
So this is a big pitch for people who want to be voice actors. Why don't more people know about this?
I don't know.
What's the book called? Pitch
It's
your book.
called Containment by Matthew Staggs. It's book 1 in the Containment series.
Staggs, 2G, 1G.
2 Gs.
2 Gs.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to read.
Side
so,
note, 5G, is it really going to give me cancer? I've heard that's what it's going to do.
Who knows at this point?
Okay.
I'm pretty sure like 10 years from now. Well, I mean, first off the bat, everything from the state of California says that it gives us cancer. So
Yeah.
it's
California gives you cancer. Heard it here first. Okay, so Staggs,
well,
2
all
Gs.
the warning labels. It's like
Yeah.
this contains a product that is known to give you cancer in the state of California.
Yeah, only in California though.
We didn't get it
Yeah.
anywhere else. It was
Yeah.
only there.
What is so now let's talk about this book. So Containment, is it a modern fiction? What was it?
It is a post-apocalyptic thriller
Ooh.
that is after it takes place in America after this virus has gone through and wiped out the majority of the population.
Yep.
And the CDC was able to get a handle on it by very violent measures. So it was kind of like a government takeover via the CDC because they had to quarantine all these people and get rid of these bodies and things like that. And so it takes place about this family that's trying to live in this kind of a world when their daughter suddenly comes down with the disease.
Ooh.
So I won't give too much away, but it follows their adventures trying to figure
That's
out what they're supposed
awesome.
to do.
Containment by Matthew Staggs.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
gonna
fun.
check it out.
Yeah,
Nice, dude. I didn't
there's
even know you could
some-
do that. I did not know that was a thing.
it is totally a thing.
That is
I have,
really cool.
I have way better equipment now, so it'll sound even better for the future audiobooks that Robin will, of course, let me do.
All right. So, what do you feel like then? It kind of leads into the other question I had. So, what do you feel like is one of what strengths do you bring to a podcast type of media?
Well, I have a very specific set of skills in knowing that. Sorry, I just wanted to be Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I wanted to channel it for a second. No, my specific set of skills
I will find you.
is genuine curiosity and interest.
Yeah.
I think that is a level of authenticity that I can bring to the table that be it either is a draw or it's a deterrent, and it's I'm just being me. So
so genuine. You can be genuinely interested in a number of different things. Then,
oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah. And I think it's important to bring people's stories out and to see, because what's interesting is when I have listened to podcasts, things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to these stories of these people. A lot of times I'm able to relate to lessons that they have gone through, and it's not anything that they were basically talking about. It was just kind of like side information that all comes out of it.
Sure.
And I think that that's a draw. I've been given a life with a lot of different experiences, and I feel like it has given me a unique perspective on the world that I think a lot of people would be attracted to.
So, and that's a big deal, being able to be authentically interested in somebody,
Sure.
And have it come across as authentic and not come across as, fomented. Yeah. Or like, oh yeah, this is great. Jeez, how much longer does this guy keep talking about making marble animals or something stupid? Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Oh man, I'm not done with my 31 questions from Al Gore's internet.
From Al Gore's internet?
Yeah, man. Al Gore invented the internet.
Oh, okay. I thought you pulled it up from like a website that was called.
No.
This is the 31 questions from Al Gore's internet.
No, that's the domain was taken actually. So
I would probably.
Yeah.
Probably. So, for your own journey.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know much about you other than that we both share a love for all things nerd.
Yes.
And that you are a spectacular dungeon master because I was able to listen in on the one recorded session.
You should definitely withhold, be reserved. Yeah, go ahead.
But, I mean, obviously we both have these different backgrounds, but where would you say you are from? Like you would say...
like geographically from?
No, like
that's not interesting.
Would be your... No, like... You've lived in a few different places throughout your life.
Yep.
And, like, if you could sum up what those places were for you, could you...
Yeah, you're going to have to...
Sure. So let me give an example of what I'm trying to ask.
Can I like use one of like call a friend or something?
Yeah. Okay. So here's an example. So basically, for anybody who doesn't know me, I grew up in California, and when I turned 19, I went to go live 2 years in the jungles of Ecuador. And then upon returning,
that sounds way cooler than it actually was. By the way,
I was a missionary.
Yep.
In shirt and tie, in all of my gringo glory.
Yep.
Walking around in the jungles of Ecuador. Just so many banana fields for as far as the eye could see.
There's so many jokes to tell right now. Okay.
But after that, I came home and I got married, and we joined the Air Force. We moved to Utah. We moved back to California.
Yep.
We moved to Texas. We moved back to California. We moved back to Texas. And I spent a short time over in the Middle East.
Oh, so that's what you want to know about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that cool.
Let's give just a quick
So
history.
born and raised in Austin, Texas.
Really?
Yeah, born and raised in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Yep. And lived there till I was 19. And then so I served a mission as well in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine. Then I went to school at Brigham Young University in Utah, in Provo, Utah, and then transferred to the University of Texas at Austin, where I graduated. Stayed there for, good grief, I want to say 9-10 more years. Worked in development, real estate mainly, and business operations, and then moved to Portland and was there for a year and a half. Then came back to San Antonio to run a company. And then have been here ever since.
Now, Portland seems like
amazing.
Well, yeah, but a bit random.
Oh yeah, so a buddy, So a buddy of mine ran a company in Portland, and I'd spent the previous 8 or 9 years growing businesses. So I done real estate, and kind of. So real estate, especially high-end luxury real estate, we did a bunch of commercial projects and some medical offices, but mainly it was high-end commercial custom homes. And then, God, this is not interesting, and then I learned how to business operations and business management. And then the real growth for me peaked when I learned how to do standard operating procedures. And this is boring. So how to learn how to grow businesses.
Sure.
So a buddy of mine had a company in Portland, and he had it for, 6-7 years, and he wanted to grow it, but he kind of was maxed out. He had done all he could do. And so I went up there, and we opened a couple new operations or businesses or locations for him in other states. And then we moved again, I gave him a book of business and said, hey, keep doing this and you'll grow. And so at the end of last year, he had just gotten notice that he was one of the top 2,500 or 2,000 fastest growing businesses, something like that. And I'd come back here to grow a business, and we grew it really fast, and then started another company. And so God, is this what you wanted to hear?
Man, this is what I want to hear.
Yeah.
This
so
is where you're
me.
from. And then, so how long in all this process? Because I know that you and your wife Natalie have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
She's been there this entire time.
Yeah. So we met when we were 14, and dated when we were in high school, and then got married and had kids. I was probably only 23, 22, 23 when we got married, and then had our first kid a year later, and and now we're on number 6.
So you've known her since you were 14.
Yep.
Is she the same age as you?
Yeah, 4 months older. Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, at this point, we don't count months anymore.
Nope, we do not. I count pounds. How many pounds ago was that? It was 48 pounds ago. Yeah. So, I think for us, it was a matter of just having known each other. And I dated a bunch of other people, but, it was, of all the people who I dated, my wife was the only one who I always wanted around me, no matter what I was doing, right? I did not that I would get sick of people, but I always wanted her there, and that was that's how I knew. I was like, man, I always want this person around me all the time, no matter what I'm doing, right?
It's a good trait to have in a person that you're always going to be around.
So that ended up being, the magical, touch. So,
that's
but then
really
we got
interesting because
married.
you knew her when you're 14.
Yep.
And it was up until 2 years after you came home from Ukraine.
Yep.
That's crazy. I didn't know that you had been dating around that long.
Oh yeah, no. And I tell you, if I probably still wouldn't be married. I mean, this must have been years ago. Somebody reached out to me on Facebook who I dated, and she still wasn't married, and there was nothing nefarious going on.
Sure.
But I was like, man, and so, but I think that's how I'd be if it wasn't for my wife. I still wouldn't be married right now. Nope.
Wow.
it just wouldn't have worked.
Well, I love both of you together, so I'm glad that you are.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of both of us as well. So, I think the one thing is when it comes to especially it honestly. So I was watching a podcast today, or I was listening to a podcast, and it was also being streamed on Twitch, and I was watching it, and it was about D&D, and if part of the problem is one of the reasons that people don't get to high levels of gameplay in Dungeons and Dragons, regardless of the edition that they're in, is that if you were going to, they don't have a DM to take them there, right?
Right.
And if you were gonna, and it would sound like this is why, right? Hey, Benji, we want to invite you to play D&D. We're going to need you to commit to it for probably the next 3.5 years to get to the end of this story arc, right? It would be ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
that's the kind of commitment that it takes.
It is, but that's not the pitch that's always made for it.
Oh, I've never made that pitch, and maybe that's what I should do. I'm going to post.
I think that I should start pitching that way.
And it is, right? It's you've got to think it's a So I play in a bi-weekly game right now. You play every week still,
every
right?
Week, yeah,
and
every
so
Tuesday.
that takes, now our bi-weekly game is 4.5 hours. How long is your weekly game?
3 hours.
3 hours, yeah. So, that's the kind of time it's taking to get somebody and to tell a story. And there's a couple of options, I think, especially like now there are these streaming games, right? So streaming D&D games are very, very popular. And I think, one of the features that they can leverage, in my opinion, right, just from a business standpoint, for whatever that's worth, is, hey, okay, levels, 1 through 7, and then, you come back the next week, and hey, look, you're now level 12, right? You're now level 10. I want you to tell me what happened during those 3 levels. What did you do? It's been several years and blah, blah, blah. And now you're back together. A really interesting, it lends itself, in my opinion, to a streaming type game. But it also, meaning you expect some kind of episodic progression through a campaign. You and I have talked about, different ways to improve that in the past. But I think it would also help in a, hey, we want to get to the story arc. Let's fast forward and get to level 20 with kind of these little magic wands.
Sure. It's hard for me to see, I guess as a dungeon master, I don't have that skill yet to look forward and be thinking to myself, oh, they need to be at least this level in order to handle what's going on here. I try to make it to make it feel like it's reasonable encounter.
Yep.
And if they do encounter something that's truly like they have put themselves in a situation where suddenly they're facing something that's completely deadly.
Yeah.
I obviously this is something that they're underleveled for, but their characters don't know that. So
Yeah.
I like to give an option of survival. Whether or not they take it is up to them. But
so do you feel like if you were to fast forward through, a level or 2 or 3 or even no levels, just years in a game, right? Okay,
Right.
you're still kind of what we did in your campaign. You come back and it's 3 years, 3 years ahead, but we're all still the same level, right?
it
And
can be said that was not foreseen.
Yeah.
So that was
and it makes it
impossible to
tough
plan
as a DM, especially if you're going to give somebody a real sandboxy campaign. I think an episodic campaign is hard to do in a sandbox type game. But
Sure.
so does it suspend belief? Is there a lack of verisimilitude that you
No, I
that you
don't
struggle
think
with?
so. So it's interesting that you bring it up. What happened for me when I was watching the new Star Trek movies?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm relating this to the newest Star Trek movie. After the Wrath of Khan arc, where
Yeah.
all of that happened. Well, it starts in the third movie, I believe it is. Yeah, because it's Star Trek, then Into Darkness, and then it's that last one. I can't remember the name of it. So anyway, so it starts off in the arc, and they have been out in space for months, years,
Yeah.
and they're bored of it.
Oh, I see.
But
Oh,
as
yeah,
as a
yeah.
viewer, I'm picking up this, and I'm thinking, what happened?
Yeah.
Why wasn't I able to go on this journey with them through all these adventures? Because obviously they've been having adventures, and now they're bored of all of the adventures they've been having. He just wants a break. So I would feel as a dungeon master like I'm missing out on all of this things that we could have played through if we do skip forward. I see the value in it because I have characters, I have players that want to play high level. They want to unlock these feats at this time because I've played with a certain number of power gamers who have everything prepared. Like, they know exactly what they're going to do when they level up all the way up to 20.
Yep.
And we make it to 10 and then, and
Yeah.
then they die.
Yep.
So this would be a way for them to feel that they're becoming that more epic level character, but save some time at the table. I could see the value in that for sure. I would have to do it at a place where I felt like the arc was coming to a natural close.
Sure.
Like, for example, in our campaign that we were playing, it was getting to a point where it was kind of, your character, Benj had gotten to a point where he felt like, this is it. I don't want to do anything else.
Oh, yeah.
I want to take my money. I want to go be living on the beach somewhere.
Yep.
And that is a place where you could.
We had escaped prison. It was Shawshank Redemption in Faerun. It was I was done. Yep. Go ahead.
And it makes sense for your character.
Yep.
And that's fine. And so it would be a spot where we could say,
yeah,
we all decided, okay, this isn't going to work anymore for our group as characters, and then pick it back up in the future.
So, what's interesting is like, oh, okay, you do that, right? And so this is going to be completely, nobody who's listening or whoever listens in 500 years when they dig this up from the dirt, it would have suspended. Well, so we were in the freelance.
Right.
There was no war in the freelance.
There was.
We would have been, at the time, especially where we were going. There was nothing. Right, for 4 or 5 days in either direction, there was no civilization right on the map. And when you think about it, you could have said, okay, you do that. It really is a situation on like Star Trek where there were no adventures. There was living and sleeping and growing crops and fishing and then sleeping, and then there was a storm, but there was no adventures. And then all of a sudden the characters they've turned their back on the world, and when they turn around they find out that the world is burned.
Right.
Great, well done, good job, idiot. And my character in particular he was warned by I forget which deity was it?
Mistra.
Yeah, to be like, hey, look, you need to I've already done this. I'm tired of it, and so it would have been an interesting story arc had it continued. And I think the party would have continued, we would, and then party dynamics. That's another big reason why I think campaigns don't finish that story arc.
Right.
But that's interesting. That's interesting that you need that as a DM. You feel as if that is integral to the experience, right?
Something that we're unlocking this adventure together. And so I would feel, hey, what happened?
Yeah. That's interesting because I think, maybe it's just the ADD in me, but you think, oh yeah, so let's boom, go forward. You know what I mean? Sure. Even if you didn't, if you just did it in time and the character didn't change, right? There is, and that's honestly, in my opinion, I think the Dungeon Master's Guide does a really good job of addressing some of this downtime stuff.
Oh, yeah,
but
definitely.
Because for me, verisimilitude is the idea of I'm drawn back into the real world, right? It's no longer escapist fantasy. It's when we have to sit here and do some of the mundane things. Okay, we got to go sell the swords. Okay, we got to go do this. We have to go pack. And it's not bad.
Sure.
But the focus, I guess, for me is all about, story driven. And if it's not progressing this story, it's encumbering, right? It's unnecessary weight. And I think it can be good, right? But it's not necessarily something that I would like hard rules on pacing because, you can take a character who starts, and even Mike Merles during the playtest, he talks about levels 1, 2, and 3 being apprentice. Well, Mike Merles and the guys who wrote the playtest material, these are the apprentice levels, right? These are the levels when the world doesn't care about you or if you live and die. Life is cheap, which is a huge turn from 4th edition when you're God's gift at level 1, right?
You're a WoW hero.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what's an interesting progression of that character is I would like to see some hard rules on downtime, right? You can take a character who the world cares nothing in 5th edition. You can take a character who the world cares nothing about, and he goes in military parlance from a private to the general of the army to in the matter of like 18 months if you just plow right through. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see that.
And so that's always for me, one of the things that like suspends the verisimilitude of the game and draws me back into the what? Like I haven't even gone gray yet,
Well, traditionally in fantasy armies, you're not expected to last very long. So if everyone
that's so depressing.
If everyone's a higher level than or a higher rank than you, and they all die, suddenly you're the general. So
that's
I don't know if you're
field commissions.
So I want to bring back to something that you were talking about and like more mundane things that happen in adventuring and storytelling like that. So I think one of the big draws that that Matt Mercer brought to the table with Critical Role is one of my favorite episodes from the first campaign was what was the name of it? It was like shopping and taverns instead of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had ever seen a dungeon master go the entire time just letting the characters play through whatever they wanted to do while they were in town. There was this downtime episode.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Matt Mercer had things that he wanted them to get to.
Yeah.
And was just trying to find a good opportunity. But what had ended up happening is they unlocked these characters that people immediately fell in love with, like Gilmore.
Yeah.
And his glorious goods. And later on was when all of that came into play, when these people were suddenly in danger or in peril, and because the characters had forged these relationships, he was able to make them this part of the story arc.
Yeah. Do you think that's, unlock? I like that language, right? The unlocking of a character, kind of like you do in a game.
Right.
But can that not be done in?
It can.
In a story-driven.
No, you're
campaign?
absolutely correct. You can do it purposefully, tie that into the story. and there is a way to do it so that you're leading the characters in that direction. So they're you give them two options to take, but they all lead to the same fork in the road anyway. So there are ways to do that narratively, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to do that.
Well, I think it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of preparation as well. I mean, if you're going to prepare a game and a campaign world and everything else, that's one of the things. It seems like DMs like Matt Mercer, they have it all figured out. They have it all kind of planned and plotted and which is great. I've got a bunch of charts. I'm like, okay, Matthew is who you meet, and he is a this and that,
Right. Well, also, I mean, it's important to know you could think that the characters are going to love this non-player character.
Yes.
And they will hate them.
Yep, they kill them.
Immediately try and kill them
Yep.
or rob from them.
Yep.
And so you have to be prepared for that reality as well.
Well, and I think it's not that you don't. So that's critical. It's not that you don't bring in NPCs, right? You don't make the world come alive through those sort of sessions, even a whole entire session where it's shopping in taverns and kind of thing. But I think you if you do, it needs, in my opinion, personally, as a professional that's busy, that has set aside X amount of hours to game, that has limited amount of time. I want meat and potatoes and a dessert, and I want it all at the same time.
You might as well.
And and when you think about it, without taking advantage of good character development and good campaign world creation, then you do miss a huge part of the game. And it also goes into something else. I'd listened to, I think it was Mike Merles again on this podcast. It said it was for other DMs. It might have been Matt Colville, but he said, he's like, hey, look, I don't care. It was Coble. What's that guy's name? Ivan Coble?
Ivan. Oh, yeah.
He said, look,
I don't know how his last name is pronounced.
Yeah, it's Coble. Well, Koebel or something. But he said, hey, look, I don't care about your character, and I don't want to see your backstory, and don't even bother creating it until level 5. Get back to me at level 5 when you're not dead. And if you manage not to die by then great. Let's have a conversation. And what somebody else, such a good panel of experienced dungeon masters, that they said, hey, look, give me an idea of where you want to be, and we'll try to fit it in. If not, let's discover your backstory together, right? And I think Matt Mercer was on the panel, and he said, hey, look, he builds the character as a ranger who's really good with a bow, but the guy he cannot hit with a bow to save his life. And that's just the randomness of the dice. And then he picks up a crossbow that, a felled enemy drops, and he picks it up and he shoots and he rolls a crit. And he was like, now he's a crossbow guy, And so what was interesting is developing that story. And it goes into what you were saying, developing the backstory of a character in the gameplay, which again happens through not just story-driven campaigns, but campaigns where it's, in campaigns where there are sessions that are, hey, we're going to shop, or hey, we're going to do this or that, this small thing that's not, one of the 3 pillars. We're not going to explore, we're not going to role play, we're not going to, I guess we're not going to do combat, really, is the only thing, or explore some kind of ancient ruin.
Right. So. Yeah, no, that I can see definitely the value of doing it that way. I've never even considered that. I'll have to look up that interview.
Well, learn something new every day.
Yeah, exactly. So, pulling back from Dungeons and Dragons per se. Yep. So, you have how many children now?
6 kids.
6.
Each
kids.
Better than the next. It's awesome. Yeah, they're great. They're all awesome.
They get better every time as you go on.
Yeah, they genuinely have better stats. Everything.
That has actually been true for us as well.
Yeah, I'm actually, it's one of the reasons, we don't have any more kids. I'm afraid I might have some kind of demi-human, that takes over the world.
You really need to be concerned about something like that, because there are certain names that I need to avoid saying. Like, I can't speak Latin.
Sure.
Because I am accidentally summoning demons.
Oh.
Like, I'm just trying to read a recipe and suddenly there he is there. He just lights a fire in my kitchen, and I got to get him out. Yep. So it's there are things you need to be, extra careful of. So demi-human status would be that. Yeah, we don't want to bring the wrath of the Greek gods back.
Yeah, so
to the world.
you know, a seventh Jones child may be.
It's just too much for the
yeah,
world.
Good grief. The president or the end of the world. Who knows?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, you know, that's... It feels like that the two might be synonymous with how people treat that kind of a world nowadays.
You never know.
Anyways, so.
Yeah, so 6 kids, and, you know, it's just definitely a huge part of my life is kids and sharing with them the things that I love. They're all cooler than I am and smarter, and so I've tried to play D&D with them, but it's pretty quick that they don't want to play D&D with me anymore.
It hasn't been.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of them to read comic books, but they're not committed.
So what was it that drew you originally to things that were nerdy? When did you start?
Oh, yeah, my brother. That's a good question. So my brother Chris, my oldest brother Chris, was a massive nerd. So comics and gaming and all kinds of stuff. Plus, there was a little bit. So I never liked anything that was cool, right? So I skateboarded when I grew up. Skateboarding wasn't cool. Comic books, never, mainstream pop culture cool. D&D, same thing, right? And so liking all of these things that were never really popular kind of all led to appreciating things that were kind of kicked to the side, ignored by mainstream, not just media, but everything. So
your brother,
brother Chris,
was interested in it. Okay.
Yep. So he got me playing.
What kind of comic books was he into?
Huge Spawn fan way back when. Yeah,
Spawn.
he has number one issues, or the first edition, or the first issue, first print of Spawn. Has a couple other really good books.
Wow.
I ended up finding, even with comic books though, there are comic books that I like ones that usually end up stopping being printed. Like Image Comics, for whatever reason, has it. Like my favorite comic book is the Black Monday Murders right now, and they haven't finished. I mean, they haven't printed that. Months. And you got 6 issues, and then they take a few weeks off or a month off, whatever. But it's been months. 7 to eternity.
You'll never know what happened on that Black Monday.
Yeah, and I'll never know. It's such a great story, And anyway, so that's kind of what, in the art as well. And I think having definitely like ADD or whatever it was when I was a kid, like sitting down and reading a whole book, I was like, nah, thank you, appreciate it, but no. And that was a big it was a big draw for me, is the book could be engaged and read, but also told in a visual format as well.
Right.
So that was an attraction.
So with the release of all of these comic book movies that have been coming out, has that been fulfilling?
No.
It has not been fulfilling in the least.
No. Well, see, they're all about they take the mainstream characters. They're good. It's not that I don't like them. But, the one, Spawn, they had a Spawn movie way back when. And it was terrible.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
I feel, though, that the quality in comic book and fantasies type movies has gone up astronomically in the last 5 years.
Yep. Iron Man 1 was outstanding.
Yeah, I think that's really where it gave everyone a visual of, this is how you're supposed to do it. We've been doing it wrong this entire time.
And it took great actors. It took big money. I think
Robert Downey.
Yeah, it did. But it's the same thing with like fantasy novels and fantasy movies that are adapted for the film. And it took. There's some good fantasy movies before that, but to be honest, it was Lord of the Rings that made everyone want to go see it. It was well written enough and well told, and it was engaging enough on a human level that, oh wow, yeah, this is a good piece of entertainment. I'm going to go spend my time and money to consume this entertainment.
Right, and I think
Iron Man was the same way.
That's a huge thing that happened with The Hobbit and with Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Is that they were epics.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be, here is how trolls work, or here is how dwarves are, or anything like that. It's these things have already existed. I'm not going to go into the backstory on them.
Yeah.
Just take them at face value. We're just going to run with the story. We're going to tell a story about these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot that you could take from it.
Yeah.
I have studied a lot about J.R.R. Tolkien just because I think that he's an amazing human being.
Oh, genius, no doubt. Yep, genius, without question.
And so seeing his influence that had, like how his life was influenced and how his writings were influenced by World War I and his this whole military service is it brings into it makes it a lot clearer the things that the themes that he brought into it, like this war, it's stupid, it's endless.
Yep.
There's no real point for it.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to take care of this group of people that
Yeah.
you care about and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So I have a degree in Russian literature, right? And so, yeah, I know.
There's a lot that you could do with a degree in Russian literature.
And so, but from the reason books like, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit in particular. The Hobbit's one of my favorite books of all time. And
I'm reading it right now to
yeah,
Parker.
It's fantastic. Now, I think the book, The Hobbit trilogy, is far superior to the movies.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
But that said, the reason things like that are so successful is they're hitting on archetypes that are relatable to a number of different cultures. And take, for example, J.R.R. Tolkien, they're applicable at the time that they become printed. You take things, Alexander Dumas's book, The Count of Monte Cristo, right?
Oh my gosh, I love The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, but few people have read it. You get a degree in Russian language and literature. You end up reading books like that. And you sit there and you're like, how do we not? We're reading Lord of the Flies in elementary school. We need to be reading The Count of Monte Cristo. Like this book, the ideas that are being expressed here are so much more profound, and perhaps it's not age appropriate, or I'm not a child psychologist.
Well, I mean, Lord of the Flies, they're like, oh, these are children. That's not the point.
Well, and so, but they're very, very powerful. They're teaching these very important concepts. The Hobbit, for example, even though you're little and inconsequential and don't have these big, massive dreams in the world to run an army or to be the president or whatever, you can change it. You can have an influence upon the world at large.
Right. You might just want to stay in your little hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And eat all of the food that you ever want for the rest of your life.
Yep. And same thing with so many other good books. Count of Monte Cristo, the idea of redemption and revenge, and how useless it is, and how it can change an individual, but it can also drive an individual. So many times the weaknesses that we have are huge motivators, and that kind of stuff becomes. I mean, Spawn, right? He was a bad guy, right?
Yes,
and that's but it ends up becoming a huge. Anyway. So those are the things that I think they withstand the test of time for sure.
Yeah. Just a quick note on Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
So did you watch the movie that came out?
Oh yeah. Spectacular
it was
movie.
Really good.
I mean, what are you going to do with a book? I mean, they did as great of a job, in my opinion, as you could.
Yes. And the only disappointing thing for me was that he went back with his woman in the end of it.
Yeah.
But in the book, he's like, no, screw you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could sit here and
on my list.
Yeah, we could sit here and we could have an intellectual debate about that. When I saw the movie, he was what's the guy's name? The guy who plays Count in the movie.
Oh, I don't know his real name.
Yeah.
I don't know his real name.
Anyway, so he's massively attractive. Now he's enormously wealthy, and he's extremely talented. He's a swordsman, right? So you're like, oh wow, this guy, they're doing it the right way. And then I remember seeing his wife, and his wife at the time, I don't think she'd been in any other big movies or plays. She wasn't a A-list actress,
Yeah.
and she wasn't. She was not unforgettable, like I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it wasn't like she had, a figure that we're not going to kill this girl off. I mean, she's this beautiful woman, or do you know what I mean? Or she's exotic or whatever. I remember watching the movie and thinking he's gonna kill her after like this. They're really gonna do it, and I was surprised.
Yeah,
but just because the female lead was not a in a D&D
Yeah.
campaign where you could pull from, and that's why it's so amazing. It's so engaging, man. Yeah, huge fan of Canonical Crystal.
I always pull things from